Yeah, we are live now. Good evening, viewers. This is Major General Sanjay Soy from Provis Learning and Consulting. We try to bring positivity in everybody's mind by talking to people from diverse background who are doing something differently or out of box and are contributing to society. And we have been doing it on every Saturday at 7 p.m. Today, we are going to talk to young, energetic, full of new ideas, UPSC CDS topper, TEDx speaker who worked for Facebook and decided to do something offbeat. Very special, Miss Vandana Vijay, CEO and founder of Offbeat Tracks. Welcome to show, Vandana.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
We'll get to know more about her as the session progresses. Vandana, in fact, you have what I just brought out, have an outstanding profile. Still, you decided to do and dive into an unknown world of travel industry. It is totally different ballgame. In fact, your father is an army officer. So, what was the trigger, and what were the challenges when you decided to start Offbeat Tracks?
First of all, thank you so much, sir, for having me on this platform. And I'm really excited to be engaging with a large and diverse audience. As you said, I am from a defense background. My father and grandfather both were in the Indian Army. And I myself wanted to join the Army. But I grew up all over the country and had spent a fair amount of my childhood in the mountains. I remember my father having a tenure in Jammu and Kashmir, and we've traveled extensively across the state. And there is some deep found love and connect which I've always had with the mountains. I remember with my father and me sitting together and opening up maps of the Himalayas or contour maps, and my dad would explain the ridges and the spurs and tell me to identify what is what. So there's always been a deep found
I can
love
understand.
love and passion for the mountains. But
Yeah.
I think essentially the turning point for me happened in 2014 May. I was working in Facebook at that time, and I happened to volunteer with a non-profit based out of Ladakh. The non-profit is called as LEHO, Ladakh Environment and Health Organization, and I spent 2.5 weeks working with them, traveling across remote Ladakh, identifying remote mountain communities and looking at different indigenous solutions that they were using for resource management. Things like artificial glaciers or women's self-help groups and so on. And I think that
Okay.
was the turning point for me, which made me kind of identify that, this is what I want to do. These are the people whom I really directly want to work with and showcase how beautiful, this part of our country is to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. I think you are right. Even in India, people are not aware of maybe the Northeast, Leh, Ladakh. I mean, these are
Exactly.
places, such beautiful places people must visit and must go. Yeah. So, okay. So that was a main thing.
That was the turning point.
Okay. That's great. I think it's very, very noble thought. And in fact, another thing which is quite different, like when I was going through the profile of your company, I noticed that you have identified three sustainable development goals as mandated by United Nations:
Absolutely.
affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, responsible consumption and production. This I read it out, and then you decided these as part of travel-related experiences. I mean, it's quite different. Frankly, honestly, one looks at it travel as a fun and enjoyment. A customer is not going to travel for social cause. Yes, some of them do. A lot of people go for those things. But yes, your thing is quite different. So why do you think? In fact, at times I also need to understand that. Why do you think that customer will buy this concept of yours? And what has been your experience so far?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a great question, and I'm very glad that you brought that out, because that is the core of what we do in Offbeat Tracks and how we want to differentiate ourselves from the rest. So let me give you a little background on why the SDGs. So Niti Aayog, which has been very instrumental in setting up the whole tourism industry in India and the whole idea and concept of incredible India, as we talk about in tourism, had very importantly mandated that we've got a region in India called as the IHR, which is the Indian Himalayan region. And these are regions with very remote, unique cultures, very inaccessible, very remote. And they identified that travel and tourism can be a great means via which we can bring about economic development and generate employment for people across this region. Now,
Yes.
the UN has mandated, we've got the whole list of sustainable developmental goals which have been mandated by the UN. And the Niti Aayog essentially picked out a couple of these SDGs, out of which SDG 8 is something which is very important, and said that, if we could fulfill SDG 8 with travel and tourism across the remote mountain communities, it could be a great win for us. So that was one of the ideas which we said, let us build on. And during the course of the company and the kind of tours we bring about, which I will be talking to all of you in my presentation, I figured that we can pick 3 SDGs. As you said, SDG 7, 8, and 12. And with each and every tour of us, we can accomplish this in a certain way. Now, as a customer, as you rightfully said, people look at travel tourism as something which is leisurely. And why would someone want to do social work?
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
when you travel with Offbeat Tracks, it doesn't feel like social work. You're traveling, you are staying with locals, you are interacting, you are fulfilling these goals, but I am not compromising on your vacation experience. And we'll understand more of that in the course of my talk. But essentially, what I believe travel should be is something which is very local, very immersive, and something via which I think travel personally is a great teacher, and a means via which there is a two-way interaction where you as a tourist are learning something and someone as your host is also gaining, is something which is sustainable and beneficial to both.
Absolutely.
So with your permission, if I can get started with my presentation, and I'll be
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to explain a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and so on.
In fact, go ahead. We look forward to seeing, because then the pictures and maybe the presentation will make things more clearer.
Awesome.
But this is very, very noble thought, what you did and what you are doing. It's amazing, actually. Uh,
Thank you.
yeah,
Is my screen visible?
yeah. It's visible to
Awesome.
me. I'm sure others also see.
Great. So, what I'm going to be talking to everybody about today is travel, but the mode of tourism we in Offbeat Tracks focus on is called as impact-based tourism. So, when I say travel, as I was talking about travel being a great teacher, so I always quote, I say travel. With travel, you can make a difference, and with travel, you can change the world. And that is our vision with Offbeat Tracks, via which we want to use travel as a means via which we can create positive impact across the Himalayas. So my first image, which I present before you, is this quaint little village called as Kigwema, which is in the easternmost state of India called as Nagaland. Nagaland is also called as the wild east of India. And during the course of my talk, I am going to be doing a case study on 4 specific states. We'll start with Ladakh up north, then we'll move to one international destination, which is Bhutan, and then we come back to India and we'll study Nagaland and finally wind up with Meghalaya. So my opening
I'm
image
so
is,
happy that you are covering northeastern Ladakh and all these places which are so lesser known to rest of the India. I think people
yes,
need to know. That's wonderful, and I could guess that this picture looks like from Nagaland only.
I know,
Great.
with terrace farming and cultivation, and yes,
And so fortunately, I'm also wearing Naga jacket.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, yeah,
So, just a few facts about how tourism is the largest service industry in the nation. And as I was saying, is tourism can be instrumental in generating employment and bringing about effective economic development in the IHR. The IHR is the Indian Himalayan region, which starts from the Himalayas up north, comprising of the newly formed Union territories of Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir. And we keep traveling eastwards till we wind up in the northeastern states of Nagaland, Meghalaya, Mizoram. Now, there has been a growing need of, across the international forums, which says that tourism needs to be inclusive and sustainable tourism is what will be the way forward. Because in a lot of cases, we'll see, and the whole concept of mass tourism brings about a great deal of strain on the natural resources of a region. And it is not the most sustainable idea. Case in point, look at what's happening to our popular tourist destinations like maybe a Shimla or a Mussoorie. Shimla is running short of water for its own people because of this whole mass tourism and influx of huge amount of people coming in. So tourism, especially in the Himalayan region and mountain communities, needs to be very sustainable so that we can, you have both communities benefiting out of it, and you can have it go on for a longer term. Now, Offbeat Tracks, as a company, we are committed to bringing about sustainable development using tourism across the Indian Himalayas and Bhutan. We've identified 3 SDGs which we work towards. The first one is SDG 7, which is affordable and clean energy. SDG 8, which provides decent work and economic growth to participants. And SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production, by which we do not put a burden or a strain on the existing natural resources. Now, what I am going to do is take you across the Himalayas on a visual journey and talk to you about how Offbeat Tracks has been instrumental in creating impact across these regions. This is a general map about the Himalayas. Just get I'm someone who absolutely loves geography, and I always feel it's very important to have a map before we begin to just get our orientation. So you look at the Himalayan ranges and the greater Himalayas, and you've got the Ladakh ranges, the Zanskar, which comprise of the greater Himalayas. And further up north, you've got the Tibetan highlands. As you keep traveling east, you've got, you've got Bhutan, and then the Himalayas take this sharp U-turn in Arunachal Pradesh at the famous peak called as Namcha Barua. That's also where the Brahmaputra takes the U-turn and starts traveling from east to west, where it finally merges with the Ganges, and we've got the great Gangetic plain. And as we come southwards, you've got the Patkai Bom, the Naga Hills, the Garo Khasi Jaintia Hills, the Mizo Hills, which are lower and not as high as the western flanks of the Himalayas. First destination I want to take you all to is Ladakh. Ladakh, personally for me, is my favorite destination in the whole wide world, and I can say that hands down. There is just something so unique and so magical about Ladakh. There's a common folklore about Ladakh which says that, the land and the terrain is so harsh that only the fiercest of enemies and the best of friends would want to visit you in Ladakh. And that is something which is so true, but there's something so magical about Ladakh.
I spent one annual leave there. In fact, for 1 month, I spent time in Ladakh. And there's so many places which one can spend time going around, and beautiful places and lifelong memories. This
Absolutely.
is totally different kind of hill station, which is very difficult to perceive actually. Yeah.
The landscape, and I think just that whole, influence of Tibetan Buddhism, which has come into the monasteries, the culture, the stark landscape, it's just unique. In fact, the image before you is, it's this famous monastery called as the Stakna Gompa, and you've got the frozen Indus meandering its way around Stakna. And this is one of my favorite destinations in Ladakh. It's just picture perfect. This is just about maybe a 40-minute drive from Leh on the way to Karu. So this is a general map of Ladakh to give you a brief idea of it. You'll see a few, places in this map which are very prominent in our news these days. So you've got the Shyok River, you've got the Pangong Lake, which is towards the northeast of Ladakh. And then you've, of course, got the popular Leh and, Thiksay and so on. Another very popular part of Ladakh. So Ladakh essentially has two districts. You've got the Leh district and the Kargil district.
Yeah.
Leh being the larger one. And so as you're traveling from Kashmir, as you can see on the east, there is a road which you cross the Kashmir Valley at Zojila Pass and you enter this region. So you have Dras, Kargil, and you keep traveling towards Leh. Essentially, the Indus, the river after which our great nation has been named, the Indus and its tributaries feed the region, and the Indus keeps flowing eastwards, west, and it gets into Pakistan.
Yes.
So this is generally about Ladakh. Now here is a little
now
visual.
actually in last 15, 20 days or 1 month, a lot of people have learned about Ladakh a lot.
Yes, absolutely. No one knew where the Shire, Galwan, and so on were.
Pagong se Leh.
So this. So this is a little video which I took when I was visiting one of these villages in Ladakh. The name of the village is Takmachik. What you see the locals wearing here is their traditional dress, their traditional costumes, and their headgear is called as the perak. These are what Ladakhi women wear, which is studded with turquoise stones and essentially is what is gifted to a bride on her wedding day by her parents. This ceremony was a small welcoming ceremony which the villagers had organized for us when we were visiting Ladakh. Now, what we do in Ladakh is something which is very unique, and we fulfill SDG 7 here, which is affordable and clean energy. So, when you travel to Ladakh with Offbeat Tracks, we encourage our guests to stay in homestays run by local families. The image on the left, which you see here, is of a traditional Ladakhi kitchen. You can see the traditional stovetop, which is usually the center. So kitchens are the center of Ladakhi culture. You go to any Ladakhi household, the host is going to bring you into their kitchen. That's where all the socializing happens. This is an image from one of the homestays I visited, where look at how beautiful and ornate that stovetop is. And behind that, you can see they have displayed all their vessels. This is where all your conversation happens. Everything happens here. So when you travel to Ladakh, we say get the true essence of what Ladakhi culture is. And that's only going to happen when you live with locals and travel like locals. So ditch the traditional Oyo or the traditional hotel chains and do something which is very different and stay in a homestay. Now, the image below of village Stakchik is a village which is, when you drive from Ladakh towards Batalik, this is a village which comes on the offshoot. You can see it's a beautiful green village. It has the Indus flowing along it. And the village is completely organic. They are completely organic in their modes of farming, and it's apricot region. So a lot of apricots are grown. Now, a traditional Ladakhi village in structure has a central village unit, which you can see in the image, but has a whole bunch of small peripheral structure, units called as doks. Now, what's happening is the central village gets electrified, but these doks are small clusters, which could be, as close as maybe a 10-minute walk to as far as a 6-hour trek uphill. And they could be clusters ranging from maybe 2 or 3 homes to about 10 or 12 homes and a monastery. So what happens is the main village is getting electrified, but these doks get neglected in the larger scheme of things because people really don't consider them to be parts of the village. So 2017 July, I set out on an expedition with 14 travelers from California, where we decided that we will be electrifying a dok which had 10 homes and 1 monastery. The image above is an actual image of our team at work, where we were electrifying one of these homes. These homes are simple mud structures with no lights. So they have been traditionally dependent on kerosene and firewood for their source of light and electricity. And we decided to solar electrify these homes. Now, why solar? Solar, one is it's a clean source of energy. And if you look at geographically, Ladakh is a high altitude cold desert. So that gives the region about 300 days of uninterrupted and abundant sunlight, which is just ready to be harnessed. And the setting of dokes are in such a way that houses are so scattered. So it's very hard to get them connected to a grid. So having individual solar units installed in each of these houses was the most feasible and impactful solution. Now, this video is this young lady whose house was electrified and she's turning on the lights for the first time in her home. I'd love to share this with you. Let me turn it on. All right, she turned it on. So what you can see here is, look at that smile on her face.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the magic of
life-changing event, you can say, because the moment the light comes, there's so many other things change, like the study, the way you look at things, the way you think. I mean, everything changes. And I've been I've had number of tenures in J&K and Daras also. And I know what you're saying in Dokes and all those are all isolated huts and isolated places where, because of weather conditions, because of this extreme weather condition, heavy snowfall and all that, laying lines is impossible. So what you did is, by going for the solar energy and where abundant sunlight is available, is, I think, wonderful concept which you have decided to do. And I think lighting up the houses in such remote areas and bringing a smile on the faces is amazing.
Absolutely. I think, yes, the impact for the local community was great. But when I had my 14 travelers from California who came in, these people were coming in from the Bay Area. They're probably coming from one of the most privileged parts of the world. But for them, this expedition was one of the most humbling experiences in their life. So many of us take so much for granted. And when you come and visit and stay in these remote parts of our country, you realize how gifted and privileged we are and how we are at a position where we can give back to our community. And there's so much to learn from these people.
I think this travel experience is so satisfying to the spirit, to the heart. And besides having fun, learning, education about the local culture, you also come back spiritually very satisfied and a different kind of happiness. I think those people must be going there.
Unparalleled. Absolutely. So in fact, that visual which I had shared about, everyone dressed up in their traditional outfits and dancing, and they called us on to the group and we all danced with them together and tried the local food and all. These are experiences and memories which you will cherish for a lifetime. And that is what I want travel with Offbeat Tracks to be. You need to go back with experiences and memories that, you are going to hold on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So moving on, this is our next destination. We travel eastwards to Bhutan. Bhutan is a tiny little kingdom, which is also called as the land of the thunder dragon. And it is interestingly called as the happiest country in the world. They don't have GDP, but they have an index called as GNH, which is gross national happiness, by which they call themselves as the happiest country in the world. It's a beautiful country, sandwiched between these two colossal land masses. As I say, they've got China up north and India in the south, but they have been able to preserve their distinctiveness, their unique culture and heritage. And Bhutan as a nation is a perfect example of how they have been able to preserve their culture and heritage and showcase it to the rest of the world. Now, a few facts about Bhutan is Bhutan is the only carbon negative country in the world. So that's one. About more than 60% of the country is under forest cover. Now, for nationals of India, Bangladesh, and Maldives, it's comparatively a cheap country to visit. But if you do not belong to any of these countries, Bhutan is one of the most expensive countries in the world to visit. For a solo traveler, you are paying a minimum of $250 per head per day for a basic trip to visit Bhutan. And then it keeps going upwards. And this is an intentional move by the government of Bhutan because they did not want large-scale mass tourism to affect the country and it go the Nepal way. So people who visit Bhutan really want to visit Bhutan. That is the urge, and they've been able to maintain that pristineness and exclusivity in the country. The
Yeah.
image here is of the very famous Tiger's Nest Monastery, which is also called as the Taksang Lakhang. Um, it is a beautiful trek uphill, and this monastery is precariously perched on the ledge of the hill. This monastery was burned down twice, burned down to ash, and was rebuilt to what it stands today, and is one of the most famous treks and is one of the most iconic images of Bhutan.
Yes, absolutely.
So here is a general map of Bhutan. Bhutan, essentially, if we divide it into three regions, it's Western, Central, and Eastern Bhutan. Western Bhutan is comparatively much more developed in terms of infrastructure, essentially because they've got the capital of Thimphu there, and you've got the erstwhile capital of Punakha and very important towns of Paro in the Western Bhutan. And as you keep traveling, it gets a little harder to access when you go to Central and Eastern Bhutan. You've also got a section of Northern Bhutan, which has the famous districts of Laya and Gaza. But these are not permissible for Indians to visit, and there's special permission which is required to get to the northern districts of Bhutan. Now, what we follow in Bhutan is something which is culturally immersive. So everything about Bhutan and Bhutanese travel is every local in Bhutan is very proud about their culture and their heritage. The image
Yeah.
here you see is one of their famous festivals called as their local festivals are called as the Sechus. This image is from the Paro Sechu, where one of the monasteries there, and these are the monks dressed in their traditional garb, and they perform dance for everybody, and the traditional Tangkha paintings are rolled out. When you travel to Bhutan, your driver, your guide will be wearing his national outfit. For men, it's called as the go, and women wear the kiras. So, right from the costume which your Bhutanese guide wears to welcome you, it is Bhutanese. They are proud and they showcase their culture. The homes you stay, the hotels or the homestays or whatever you stay, are in traditional Bhutanese architecture and style. That is a mandate by the government. I encourage my guests to try local Bhutanese food. Food, as they say, is a very, very important component of the culture of a region. Food kind of determines, what you are and where you're coming from. There is a particular reason why a particular crop or a grain is a staple for a land. It's because of the environmental factors, the climatic conditions, which decide what grows in that. So we've got this concept called as food-based tours, gastronomy, where we encourage our guests to, try out local cuisine, and we take them to local farmers markets, or you go to farms, you interact with local farmers. Bhutan is very famous for the red rice. So you go and have an experience where the farmer harvests the red rice. And the Bhutanese love their chili, as you can see in the image here. And
Yeah.
we have, so rice, chili, and cheese is a staple in Bhutanese cuisine. And for people who love to cook, we have these cooking lessons where you can learn how to make their signature dish, which is called as the emadatshi, which is the chili and cheese. And we've got, you visit and try out the local food, the local wines, the local beer, and understand what makes food and what is it that defines the cuisine of the region. So this is how we have very, very culturally immersive tours in Bhutan. For people who like to explore their spiritual side, I tell them, why only visit a monastery? Why don't you have a meditation session under the tutelage of a monk in one of these monasteries? A couple of the monasteries, our guests can go and spend a whole week there and have an immersive meditation session at these places. So you stimulate every sense of yours when you travel. Travel is not as something where you take pictures and post it on Instagram and Facebook. There is so much more to travel. You need to stimulate every sense of yours, because that's when you're having a thoroughly immersive travel experience. Now, next destination. This is something which Sir will also very much relate to. And
Yeah.
this is this is Nagaland. Nagaland is also called as the wild east of India. This is the 16th state of the Indian Union, and this was formed on the 1st of December 1963. And Nagaland is towards the far east of India, You've got Assam and Arunachal Pradesh to the west. It has, the eastern border of the state is completely with Myanmar, and then you've got few Indian states to the south. Now, what's interesting about Nagaland is it has a whole bunch of hills. It's got the lower Himalayas, and Dimapur, which was the railhead, which is still the railhead, is on the lower hills. Now, Nagaland as a state is culturally very unique. It is a conglomeration of 16 dominant tribes and a whole bunch of sub-tribes. Some of them you can see here in the image. You've got the Aos, the Angamis, the Chakmas, Mons, Zeliang, Konyaks, and a whole bunch. Now, each one of these tribes are unique in their dialect, their culture, their costumes, their cuisine, and everything. There's been a huge Christian missionary influence in these regions, so a lot of them are practicing Christians, but they have not forgotten their traditions and culture. So it's a very interesting, marriage between the two.
Yeah.
In fact, sir, I think you will be able to add this. The British were very, very scared of the Nagas, and the Naga warriors were someone whom they never wanted to mess with, and they said, "Let Nagaland be."
Yeah, headhunters.
The headhunters. In fact, I think the Konyak tribe are supposed to be the last headhunters, and they're identified by their distinctive facial tattoos and so on.
Yes.
Now, what you see here is images from the Hornbill Festival. The Hornbill Festival is this beautiful riot of colors which happens every year from the 1st to 10th of December at this heritage village in Nagaland called as Kisama. Now, what's unique about the Hornbill Festival is that all the tribes which are across Nagaland and a few from the neighboring states come together at this one platform and showcase their unique diversity. So they'll all come and perform their dances, they're wearing their traditional colorful costumes. They have these model village setups there. So Naga villages have this concept called as the morungs, which are these hostels or youth dormitories where all the young boys are brought together and they're groomed. So you can see what a morung setup is all about. Naga food, Naga weave, shawls, everything, distinct to every tribe and group is visible here. So what we do in Nagaland in terms of tourism is very, very immersive, where I tell my guests is you need to live like a local, live like a Naga. So we've got these Angami families who play host to us, where you go and stay with the local Angami family. In the morning, they'll take you to their village. You will be given a traditional welcome. As you can see in the image below, this is one of our clients. He's Mr. Robert Fernandez from Mumbai, and he is having a basket weaving session. He's learning how to weave a traditional Naga basket with the help of the locals. Now, how this helps the local communities is that we are creating a network of local micro entrepreneurs, as you see here. Yes. This gentleman was weaving baskets generally. We said, why let's curate a class out of this, and he's charging for it. So instead of buying your souvenir next time, we tell you that why don't you build your own souvenir? So you could probably make a little basket, maybe carve your own beer mug out of bamboo, or learn how to weave shawls. So it's, again, extremely immersive and very, very interactive. Naga cuisine is something which is very, very interesting. I'm a foodie and I love non-veg, and I couldn't stop enjoying the diversity when it came to Naga cuisine. The king chili, the bhoot jalakya, which is supposed to be the most lethal or dangerous chili in the world, is from this region. And interestingly, in the Hornbill Festival, they've got a king chili eating competition, and you will be surprised to see the amount of chili these people can handle.
It's very, very strong. Very, very strong.
Now, our last destination, last but not the least, is the beautiful scenic state of Meghalaya, which is also called as the abode of the clouds. I was very fortunate that my last place I visited before lockdown happened to be Meghalaya, where we were working with the state government on implementing tourism. Meghalaya is a beautiful state, very, very hilly, easily accessible via road. I think it's probably the only state in the Northeast which has excellent road connectivity. In fact, the drive from Guwahati to Shillong was probably the most scenic drive, and I haven't seen roads that good even in the plains in the country. And Meghalaya geographically has the Garo, Khasi, and the Jaintia hills, and the tribes are also named after the hills. Again, each tribe is very unique in their dialect, culture, and customs, but they all kind of come together, and they are within the state of Meghalaya. The locals from Meghalaya worship nature a lot, and nature is a very integral part of their culture. They have
Yeah.
a forest which is called as the sacred forest, where you are not allowed to touch a single bit of foliage which is in there. What you see here in front of you is called as is the characteristic double-decker root bridge. These were bridges. They are also called as the living root bridges. These are bridges which locals have made for centuries using the roots of trees, and these are very, very popular trekking destinations now. Now, the model of tourism, what we want to focus on in Meghalaya is adventure tourism.
Yeah, yeah.
Meghalaya essentially is poised to be the next, I would say, adventure sports capital destination of the world.
Yes.
We in Meghalaya, recently there is a cave network which is 25 kilometers long. It is called as
Yeah.
the Krempuri Caves, and it is the longest limestone cave network which is in the world, and this has been discovered in Meghalaya. If you look at the geographic history of the earth, you've got the epochs and the ages. There is a particular age in the history of the earth which is universally known, called as the Meghalayan age. It is because the rocks discovered were from Meghalaya. So there
Yeah.
is tremendous potential to develop niche adventure tourism in the region. So this is an image of caving, which is extreme tourism, but is phenomenal, and it is a very, very unique experience because caves, subterranean ecosystems are something which are very, very unique. They've got their rivers, they've got flora, they've got fauna. Very little of it because there's no light. A lot of and very unique life species which people can explore and experience. So caving is something which I feel has a huge impact, and we can promote caving across Meghalaya for people around the world, and it can probably become one of these go-to destinations for hardcore adventure sport enthusiasts
Yeah, yeah.
to come and
Yes.
visit.
Absolutely. Very nice. I mean, amazing. These places
It
are
is.
absolutely beautiful.
I feel like the Northeast is this. That's what I tell my locals there. The Northeast is an uncut diamond. We're sitting on these
Yep.
jewels. We just need to polish
Yep.
them.
Molingong, we have stayed there. We have stayed there in cleanest village of the Asia.
Absolutely. This is the cleanest village in Asia. This is called as Molingong. This village also happens to be in Meghalaya. And Molingong, interestingly, has this tag of being the cleanest village in Asia. But trust me, you visit any village across Meghalaya, it is as clean and as beautiful.
Absolutely. Yes, it is part of the nature. Yes,
It is
it is
part of
part
the
of.
nature.
Yeah.
And we promote village-based tourism here, where you stay in village homestays, promote the local culture, understand, experience the diversity, and trust me, for a lot of travelers, more than the others learning, we come back with so many learnings on how the people from the East have integrated with nature there, and how nature plays such an important role in their lives, and how respectful they are towards nature. And I think that's something which all of us need to learn and take care of.
Absolutely. I agree with you fully.
And lastly, on a closing note, this is our motto which we strive towards with Offbeat Tracks. Travel to make a difference, and travel to change the world. This is a picture of me with my local Ladakhi community at one of the villages. And this was our traditional Ladakhi welcome. And this is the welcome which all of you get when you come and visit one of the villages that Offbeat Tracks works with. They welcome you with this traditional white cloth, and there's song and dance and what I hope this picture can do some justice to it, but you need to experience this to live this.
Absolutely. Amazing. In fact, this is, such interesting thing that when, on the one hand, people are going, people are lighting up. I mean, use tourism as a tool through which clean and affordable energy can be made available to rural and nomadic communities which are living across the Trans Himalayas. Actually, people need it, and I mean, it's something so unique. I'm so impressed and really liking the concept. Okay, the tourist, it is win-win situation for everybody. I think the local people, the tourists, the government, and the, I mean, mm, mm, it's absolutely great. And then you provide generating employment for local people.
Yes,
I
very much.
mean, absolutely like rural entrepreneurship, which is there. In fact, if you see, uh, rural migration is a major problem in Himalayan region, which are facing.
Absolutely,
In fact, in
absolutely.
some of the areas, I've been to Uttarakhand and some places in Northeast also. They're like ghost villages. There are only some
Very,
elderly people staying there. Then nobody's
very,
staying there because there's hardly any employment which is generated there. And
very
then
true.
you are creating a network of rural and urban micro entrepreneurs in experiential travel. And this, I'm sure, will reduce migration. This is one thing.
Will reduce
The moment
migration.
you get a employment there, the moment people are doing something like what you said, showed basket making or something, local cuisines are being tried, local, and then people become proud of their own culture, proud of
Which is
being
so important. I think
so
to
important.
have that strong sense of cultural identity and sense of self and oneness is something which brings about a great great amount of pride in people. In fact, this is something which I remember one of our Ladakhi villagers telling us that it is so amazing for us to have people from around the world come and appreciate what we have. When we have it at home, we take it for granted. But when you have somebody from across the other end of the world coming and appreciating this uniqueness, they also realize what they have is so distinct.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is win-win situation of both. I mean, it is learning for the person who is visiting them. It is quite an education. The children who go there, the elders, like a lot of people, I would say that in North India, at present I'm living in Greater Noida. I know a lot of friends, they have no idea about Northeast. So this is one thing which we need to connect. It also becomes another indirect benefit which I'm now seeing as a Fauji is the national integration you are bringing about, like people
Very
traveling and
much.
staying in the home and then imbibing the immersive travel, what you mentioned
Very
is
much.
an experiential travel. This is
In
great.
fact, being a 4G kid, a lot of people identify themselves as, I'm from Delhi or I'm from Tamil Nadu and I'm from Andhra. I've always maintained that I'm someone with a national permit. I don't
I,
identify to a particular state, and I just identify to the whole country. And that's what I think all of us needs to be. We need to forget these regional differences and just identify. And we'll see that there might be diversity, but there is still this unique, uniformity, and everybody kind of bonds together.
Absolutely. So, I mean, having seen this, there's such a noble cause. You're combining both these things, but then we saw the pictures of Ladakh, such a nice kitchen and everything. But how do you ensure, like, people are there from remote areas, they're offering their houses for homestay and all that. As a client, as a customer, as a traveler, I would be concerned that quality control is there. What is the
Very much.
issues? So, how do you ensure that?
So, to begin with, I have actually personally visited all these destinations and vetted a whole bunch of homestays.
Okay.
Also, our model of functioning is very decentralized. So, in every state, we have a local person of contact to whom these homestay owners will reach out. So, in case someone is looking at onboarding their homestay onto the platform or saying that, what, I've got this and I would love to become a homestay host or an owner, our local point of contact is going to go there, vet the property, understand which price segment this property falls under, and there is a certain bunch of parameters which every property has to fulfill. For example, the bedroom should have clean sheets, clean linen, a good attached toilet.
Okay.
Western toilets are something which we are mandating in a lot of homestays because that's something which we see a lot of guests find very, very important, that they want to have Western toilets. So we've got these local points of contact which are locals, very dynamic, very enthusiastic, and they kind of ensure that the properties meet all the safety guidelines and parameters so that we can onboard them.
Great. Like I'm from Naga Regiment, which I brought up, and I was commissioned in Kumaon. So I have a soft corner and my people from Northeast. My wife was born, brought up in Northeast. Actually, a comment is there. Northeast is very close to my heart. I'm from Guwahati. And yes, so I have a number of friends there, and then I have number of tenures in Jammu and Kashmir and Daras and Leh Ladakh side. So, like, they've asked me one to one. Some of them have, once they saw the Facebook and on these places, that can they offer their house for homestay?
Absolutely.
How can they do it? I mean, it's a great, I look at it as a great welfare for them that if they can add on to the income and also connect with the rest of the India.
Very much. In fact, if you look at it, certain states which have done a brilliant job with building these homestays and B&Bs, Himachal has done an awesome job, Uttarakhand, and Sikkim, of course. Sikkim as a state is a model state and an example when it comes to sustainable development and tourism. Sikkim's spend also, when it comes to tourism development, is the most compared to all the other Himalayan regions. So as a property owner, what is vital for you is you need to realize that when you are having a guest come in and you are making your property your homestay, guests really look forward to interacting with the host. Yes. So the hosts need to be warm and welcoming and have these engaging conversations. Some of our homestay hosts in Bhutan, for instance, one of them, her father was the first judge in the country. The other one were a family of bureaucrats. So the conversations you have with these hosts, where they're talking about the transition of their countries from monarchy to democracy. There's so much of engaging conversation and interchange of ideas which takes place. So as a host, you should be comfortable with the fact that someone would be coming in, staying with you, probably, helping you out in the kitchen, trying out the local food, and talking and engaging. The onus is on Offbeat Tracks to ensure that you have vetted good guests coming in and staying at your homes and properties. So you're not going to have random people come in because safety is of paramount importance. But as a host, the comfort and basic amenities is one. But that welcoming nature where you are going to be talking with your host, probably taking your host out on a little tour or a walk and so on. That is what makes it from a good homestay to a great homestay. For example, one of the homestays in Bhutan, they've got this mascot, Great Dane, and his name is interestingly Tiny, but he's this big guy. And that family has made their homestay, and Tiny is this, signature mascot of the homestay. In fact, I have guests coming in saying, you know what, we don't mind moving our dates, but we need to stay at this property because my kids want to play with Tiny. And that is the impact. That's how this homestay is, everyone goes to Thimphu and they say, this is where we got to stay.
In fact, you'll be surprised. Like, I have a lot of friends. They started in their house and this concept of homestay just because they also want to interact. Like, there are some veterans, some retired people, and then old people. They feel like, okay, somebody's coming, different kind of people, interact with them, sit with them, chat with them, what you're saying, engaging conversation. Exactly. So it's not only a guest who is enjoying, the host also gets some different kind of experiences. The people from all over the world visiting them, and they also get to learn so many things, make new friends. People have developed so many good friends, and this is amazing.
Absolutely. And it's a great way for, as you said, both ways, interaction and learning happening on both sides.
And at times people have developed lifelong friendships there.
Very much.
Yeah. And okay, so this is amazing. This is such an interesting thing. But if you look the present scenario, COVID-19, I think it has played havoc with travel industry.
It has. I think hospitality has been the worst affected. We were one of the first ones to be hit. We'd probably be the last to recover. Good news slowly pouring in. Just yesterday, we heard that Himachal has opened itself gates up for tourism interstate. Still, it's a long road ahead.
Okay. So I'm sure there's a lot of positives will come out of it, and
I
people
think
have
what,
started with precautions and all. They have started
yes,
moving, and
what we are hoping and what we are trying to push is, you know, staying in a homestay or a boutique property versus a traditional hotel is probably going to be a safer option now because there are lesser people you're coming in interaction with. And when in someone's home, people will maintain a lot of safety parameters. Also, visiting areas like, for instance, if you look at the destinations I've talked about, the prevalence of COVID has been very, very minimal to zero. Sikkim, for instance, did not have COVID cases for the longest time. I think the state has just 1 or 2 COVID cases. Bhutan
right.
had 6 COVID cases, but that was all international. There's no community transmission. So all these destinations have not been impacted because there is so much, abundance of nature, greenery. It's very open and well spaced. So I am foreseeing that a lot of people would look at visiting these destinations now and understand how being close to nature and ecotourism and nature-based tourism could be the next big thing.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of good comments from people, and there are no questions as such, except somebody asked, uh, asked by that will the recording be available? Yes, it will be. It will be
I
available
think
on this.
I see someone's mentioned, are there security issues in Northeast travel? Mr. John Alfred, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
It is there. Yeah, this is the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, essentially, very, very nicely now, and thankfully, the Northeast is probably very, very safe. Also, I have a lot of women traveling, and a lot of solo women traveling or women's groups traveling is the next this big thing in India. And I keep telling women when it comes to travel, nothing beats the Northeast. If you want to, start on your journey, the societal structure is such. A lot of the communities there are matrilineal. And sir, as you would have seen, women play a very, very important role in society. There, women are in the shops, women are in the fields. They are important decision makers. So it's probably the safest place to travel to.
Yeah, I think we lost you. Uh, I So these are another comments. I mean, the good thing that you're doing is promoting it, and this is wonderful. And I think we've shown some of the very, very positive comments. There are no major questions as such because your presentation and the discussion was so immersive, so insightful, and
Thank
brought
you.
so many new things to the. I mean, people were not aware. And though as a Fauji and from armed forces, we keep traveling to all over India and keep getting posted. So we have different kind of experiences. Our kids definitely have a different kind of awareness, which is definitely a wonderful education for all of us. And thank you so much. Anything else you want to bring out in the end, or you may like to
I'd
share
love
your
for people
contact
to
details?
reach out to us. So, sir, if you could share our handles, our email ID, phone number, social media handles, if you could just share that, I'd love to reach out and talk to you personally. And once this recovers, I'd love for you all to travel with us and, try what experiential travel is all about.
In fact, once, like when I spoke to you first, I said, "Okay, your bookings are confirmed. Me and my wife are
It'll be my
there."
pleasure.
Thank you so much, Vanna,
Thank you. My
for
pleasure.
being here and bringing out so many positives in the discussion today. I'm so happy that you can combine fun with some and come back enriched spiritually, come back with the I mean such a positive feelings. Thank you so much, Vanna, for being here and sharing your thoughts, and wishing you all the best, wishing Offbeat Tracks all the best. We look forward to more interaction and traveling with you. Thank you
It'd
so
be my
much.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me over. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.